Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're talking the reunion between Gilliman and the Lion. What can we expect to happen? And just how is it going to go? General spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from across the Warhammer 40k universe. So you have been warned. And with that said, let's just jump straight in. Well, now that we are firmly on the Lion return hype train, the big thing we are all looking forward to is his reunion with his brother, Roboute Guilliman. Two loyal sons of the Emperor reuniting within this new grim dark universe, 10,000 years later after their last meeting. So how is it going to go? How is the Lion going to react to the current Imperium, to the sheer state of the galaxy? But most importantly for today, finding his brother alive and kicking, leading the Imperium. Will there be conflict, or will there be rejoicing? With the reveal of the Lion returning last week, we can infer from the few brief details that we have, it will go better than not. The quote we received from the Lion himself, "I will teach them to fear the darkness in which they dwell, and to dread the shadows they believe their allies. For there is no greater terror hunting the Stygian void than the Lion of Caliban." I'd say certainly makes clear the Lion is focused on the enemy, implying, at least to me, that he and Gilliman must largely, or broadly speaking, be on the same page. Which, to be fair, I think we'd all expect. The Emperor's Shield is a bit of a conundrum, as I've never heard of that one before, and initially I did think he may receive that from Gilliman. However, there is the possibility that we're going to see just where that comes from within the newly announced novel The Lion Son of the Forest, where it's also teased that the Lion's slumber wasn't quite so simple. So we'll all be looking forward to that. However, what can we learn from their past? What can their history tell us on what to expect? Well, Roboute was raised upon Macragge to be a statesman and ruler. He had the best of upbringings and tutelage by his foster father Connor. However, rather than become a bit of a self-obsessed, overly arrogant personality, a la Fulgrim, Gilliman has always managed to seem a fairly balanced individual, someone who understands the grim realities of war, the true purpose of his creation, managing a galactic-wide campaign, and yet at the same time be someone who can hold a conversation with a simple Imperial citizen. He may not have necessarily been the most liked amongst his brothers, but that was more to do with him coming across as pretty boring, giving off the impression he always had the answers, that his way was the right way, a stickler for duty, more than any real dislike of him personally, and he appeared to foster a few strong relationships amongst his brothers as well. Now, the Lion was a very different personality. As we know, he was not blessed with Gilliman's upbringing. He instead survived alone amid the wilderness of Caliban's ancient forests, surviving and then hunting its mythical beasts. Found by the knight Luther, he was then taken in and raised by the Order, the prototype for the Dark Angel's Legion to come. This life left the Lion as an extremely cold personality. Someone who struggled to not only form emotional bonds, even after being reunited with his brothers, but someone whose mind was eternally guarded, whose eyes were always seeking the threat, the advantage. In many ways, the Lion was formed in that forest, and a large part of him never left. It's no wonder that he is heavily rumoured and believed to be the one Primarch who was told by their father of the truth of the ruinous powers from the very beginning, because he alone was most likely resisting their whispers from a very early age. Considering Caliban's proximity to the Eye of Terror, that makes it very possible. Amongst his brothers, he was always distant, aloof, quiet and guarded. Now, thankfully, we've been lucky enough to have seen a great deal of interaction between the two brothers during the Heresy series, as part of the Imperium Secundus storyline, and so we've been able to see the evolution of their relationship. From their earliest days, the Lion's opinion of Guilliman never seemed particularly glowing. Within Alfarius's Primarch series novel Head of the Hydra, set during the Great Crusade, we saw Alfarius use Guilliman's name to intentionally provoke L. Johnson. Disguised as one of his many legionaries, Alfarius approached the Lion, offering the Alpha Legion's assistance to the Dark Angels, and to help his cause, he raised the prospect of Guilliman becoming War Master, claiming they had heard rumours of the Emperor favouring him. And the Lion's response was quite telling. "Guilliman," the Lion visibly started, an expression of incredulity spreading across his face. "What logic leads you to that conclusion?" So it's clear here, while not a nasty or barbed response made at Guilliman's expense, the Lion clearly classes himself a level above his brother. The incredulity spreading across his face, and the focus on the "that" conclusion. It's very telling, particularly for a Primarch usually so guarded as L. Johnson. And then in moving into the Heresy, with the Unremembered Empire novel, we saw this continued, with the Lion taking his legion to Macragge, ready and willing to take Guilliman and the Ultramarines out at the merest hint of disloyalty. As the Lion descended to the surface to greet his brother, he secretly had his legion ready and poised for his command to launch a planetary assault. Now, to be fair here, I think the Lion would have done this to many of his brothers, not simply Guilliman, particularly after he was deceived by Perturabo, but it certainly reinforces the lack of any real true kinship between the two. From Guilliman's perspective, at word of the Lion's coming, we saw he too had no particular fondness for his brother. Of all of them, why did it have to be him who found a way through the storm? And then, there is too much of the wild forest in him. He should be as noble as any of my beloved brothers, but we have never been close, and there is too much about him that is sly. Now that initial comment of "why him" isn't necessarily as harsh as you may think. We do have to remember that this is after the heresy has erupted, so Guilliman is most likely referring to the few remaining loyal Primarchs, which does narrow down the field somewhat. However, still, considering his big personality differences with Russ and, say, Jagatai, it's quite telling he'd even prefer them to arrive at Ultramar instead of the Lion. And with that follow-up, it's clear, it boils down to his brother's nature, that closed, guarded, secretive nature we mentioned. For Guilliman to call him sly, I think is pretty revealing of his dislike. Yet for all of Guilliman's disdain for the Lion's personality, there was always within that a sense of feeling overshadowed by him, of the Lion being the first. Now, this reunion between the brothers in a sense became the foundation of their relationship. The Lion and Guilliman welcomed each other with all the pleasantries and ceremony you'd expect. But the hidden truth behind their words was cut through in short order. Before the welcome parade had even finished, Guilliman knew, despite the Lion's words, he had in fact come to judge him, asking him point blank if he believes him traitor. And the lion simply replied, "My dear Roboute, I did not think for a moment that you had turned. I thought you'd done much, much worse. I think we both know you have." And of course, the lion was referring to Guilliman's intentions of establishing his Imperium Secundus. As far as the lion was concerned, building a new Imperium on the corpse of the first. But as far as Guilliman was concerned, keeping the dream of the Imperium alive. And it was here the two were perhaps truly honest with each other for the very first time. The lion, listening to Guilliman's calls, admitted that he wanted to trust his brother, but he'd always been wary of Guilliman's ambition. And Guilliman, in turn, revealed the irony that the lion of all the Primarchs doubted him when he himself had always been a man of many secrets. It was undoubtedly a huge step forward in the relationship between the two brothers, as only admitting those honest feelings can make. One that was reinforced by, of all people, Konrad Curze, who, stowed aboard the Invincible Reason, activated the Dark Angel's launch codes, commencing the Dark Angel's planetary assault. Immediately informed of this incoming assault and betrayal, Guilliman was, as you may expect, irate, but it forced L. Johnson to plead with his brother to believe him, that yes, it was prepared, in case needed, but that he had not ordered it, and Guilliman took the risk to trust his brother, ordering the defences of Macragge to stand down. Their relationship going forward from this would never be perfect, but these events laid a foundation so they could speak to each other in truth. With the arrival of Sanguinius, the two found a common brother they could each accept as a leader of this Imperium Secundus, neither prepared to allow the other beforehand. For the lion, it was revealed in the novel Angels of Caliban, it was truly only the presence of Sanguinius that stopped him from ending the Imperium Secundus experiment before it had even begun, and even then, he still harboured his doubts. For the short time Imperium Secundus existed, the three legions worked together amicably enough, though the sheer differences in their nature led to frequent disagreements and arguments between Guilliman and L. Johnson, revealing how important the presence of Sanguinius was. However, ultimately the lion is his own master, dedicated to prosecuting his own war, his own hunt, however he sees fit. And he eventually deceived his fellow brothers by ordering an orbital bombardment upon one of the 500 worlds of Ultramar in his pursuit of Konrad Curze, disguising the assault so it wouldn't be detected by his fellow brothers. However, it was, and he was banished for his punishment. So again, the nature of the lion brought him into conflict with his brothers. His eagerness to keep secrets, his ultimate dedication to prosecuting the enemy. He simply just has to do things his own way. With the revelation that Terra indeed still stood, that the Emperor was in fact alive, the three put aside their argument and made haste for the throne world, with the lion and Guilliman ultimately deciding to sacrifice their legions against the enemy to allow the Blood Angels a chance at slipping through, which we know they achieved. At this point, this is the last time we have seen Roboute and L. Johnson speak, a sombre farewell to Sanguinius, who they knew they would never see again. Guilliman's legion, the largest, became the sledgehammer pounding against the rear guard of chaos, the Lion's Legion enacting his campaign of vengeance against the traitor Primarch's homeworlds. Now, you would expect there to be at least one more meeting when both the Primarchs arrive at the throne world in the aftermath of the Siege of Terra. Now here we know the lion will be consumed by his grief, stabbing Russ, but ultimately ending their feud. Side note, that has got a little confusing now Russ and the wolves are helping the Dark Angels on that campaign of vengeance. So that could still happen, or maybe there could be a retcon on the way. However, here, you would assume Guilliman will take over the Lord Commander role from the exhausted Rogal Dawn, but I certainly don't expect him to implement the Codex Astartes until some time after that, given the still perilous situation they will be in, and the fact we've seen Russ wondering how the lion would have reacted to it, as he was always very proud of his legion, implying to me L. Johnson would have resisted it. Either way, we'll most likely find out ahead of time now that L. Johnson is returning. If he's never heard of the chapters before, he's going to wonder what on earth is going on. But all in all, that's the history of Lionel Johnson and Roboute Guilliman. A rocky relationship to say the least. There's a layer of underlying respect, each appreciating the other's talents. And there's been cases of them showing a trust in one another when they truly needed to. However, ultimately they're simply different natures. They're fundamentally different approaches, and the lion's willingness to simply disregard his brother's desires caused continual disagreements, and some extremely tense. So how is their reunion going to go now? What will their relationship be like 10,000 years later? Well, I think there will be a part of Guilliman reliving that Ultramar reunion from before. The why did it have to be him aspect. But honestly, I think Guilliman will be largely overjoyed to have a brother back. Any brother. On a personal aspect, we've seen a Roboute who is very isolated and alone, who has longed to have one of his brothers to talk to. The lion may not have been his first choice, but he's still a Primarch, one of the few beings that can talk with Guilliman as an equal, as a brother. I expect Guilliman to find solace in the fact that he's no longer alone, even if the lion does represent a wild card to some degree. And the lion is someone who, for better or worse, shared Guilliman's experiences throughout the heresy. Now, from the military aspect, it appears the lion is going to be doing what he does best, hunting the enemy. From the quote of striking from the void, you get the sense the lion is on full attack mode. The question is this going to be by Guilliman's order, or the lion being his own master once again? And it could be a combination of both. I think if I had to guess, given the circumstances, the cooperation between Guilliman and the lion will go fairly smoothly, in a sense. I think it's clear we're not going to get a lion who's enraged at Guilliman, being Lord Commander and naming himself Imperial Regent. So I think we'll see Guilliman installed as Lord Commander fairly quickly after the Siege of Terra, so the lion can still be around to see it for the first time. I also fully expect them to have some form of in-person reunion. I think that's only natural, where Guilliman can speak to his brother in person, on just what on earth has been going on. I also think maybe we could see some big revelations on just what the lion knows from the upcoming Son of the Forest novel. Maybe the lion's not going to be quite so out of sorts as we've always expected. However, given that history we've seen, the fundamental differences between the brothers, I'm not sure Guilliman would be stupid enough to try and command the lion. I think we may see Guilliman simply happy to have him back. A sword he may not be able to wield, but a sword he knows will never turn. And so Guilliman could simply tell the lion to go and do what you do best. If he does try to take the stricter command line, there could be problems. From the lion's perspective, I certainly don't think him being 10,000 years older will have changed anything. In a physical sense, he's been asleep the whole time, at least as far as we know at this moment. So the lion we saw then will be the lion we see now. And as such, I do think there will be an element of uncertainty running beneath. That same lion who judges Gilliman before, doing so again. And I think he is going to remain very much his own master. I wouldn't even be surprised if he makes it very clear to Roboute that he's watching him, reminding him that he's not the Emperor. But nothing more than that. I think the lion has always respected his brother's ability, if not to manage, but at least build an empire. And so, in a sense, I think that's what he'll leave him to do. The Imperium is so broken at this moment, it really needs rebuilding anew. But undoubtedly there will be clashes. The lion probably believing Roboute weak for not attempting to reclaim Imperium Nihilus yet. And I think that's exactly where we're going to see the lion spending his time. Prosecuting the war within the Imperium Nihilus. Given the trailer for 10th edition, we know that's on the cards. The next stage of Indomitus probably about to begin. Maybe the lion will be spearheading one of those fleets. A largely Unforgiven based one. That would certainly make sense. The lion wielding the Unforgiven chapters, more in line with the First Legion. So overall, I think we'll get the relationship their history shows us. Disagreements, arguments, each brother exasperated by the other's logic. But considering the situation, with far graver threats at hand, I think they'll largely be content to get on with the job. Guilliman wary of how far the lion will go, and the lion wary of Guilliman's ambition. The same thoughts and feelings they had during the heresy. And considering there is now just the two of them, for the moment at least, we could even end up seeing an improvement in their relationship. The more the lion sees of how far the Imperium's fallen, the more he may find himself sympathising with Roboute's situation. However, again, never underestimate the lion's intent. There's a line from the Angels of Caliban that could certainly reveal the lion the Imperium's about to get, that Guilliman's about to be reminded of. In a glimpse of L. Johnson's thoughts, we got the line, "For all his qualities, Guilliman lacked the steel to wield the empire he had created. Too prone to diplomacy, too eager to compromise." This is the Primarch about to return to the galaxy. For all the benefits he brings, for all the fear he will instill in the enemy, Guilliman must never forget the Lion of Caliban, the first, is his own master. But as always everyone, what do you think? How do you feel the reunion between the brothers is going to go? What lessons can we learn from their shared history? And given we now know there is a new Lion novel on the way, one that will shed rumours on the Lion's so-called slumber, could we maybe be about to get a revelation that will change everything we know? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. With that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.